you know, a unique set of drum samples. And then what I'll do is I'll copy and paste whatever one I chose from my drum rack down here. I'll copy and paste this into my simpler, and once I've decided on one, then I'll delete this whole track out of here, the whole first one, and I'll only use the red one. And now once this is in here, what I have this set to, you know, C3, which is the sample being unaffected by pitch. And then if you look, this under kicks, this one says regular, so this would be 4/4. Double would be double speed. Quad would be, you know, faster. Here's some kicks, you know, in not 4/4 time, if for some reason I needed that, which I don't need too much making house music, but they're there. And it's nice because I took any sample, threw them in there, and I have some standards, some basic standards that I can reuse. Now for kicks, it's not a real big deal. Snares, it's not really a big deal. Quarter note hi-hats, and it's a little bit, but 16th note hi-hats are really important because there can be lots of variations on them. So if you look down through my 16 note hi-hats, there's a ton of them here. Now VC means velocity change, so the velocity on each of these is different, a little bit different, but still 16th note hi-hats. And then remove would be, you know, I've cut some out of there, and I kind of just randomly went through, and then if it sounded good I kept it. And these are just, you know, MIDI clips that can, you know, trigger any sample that I put in there. I also have velocity change and note change, which would be, you know, since it's within a simpler, you drop it down a note. Since it's not within your drum rack, it's not going to trigger another sample. It's going to trigger a different pitch of that same sample. So I put some different ones. Sometimes hi-hats can be really cool sounding like that. And then velocity, note, change, all of those mixed together. I mean, you have millions of possibilities, but these are just some standard ones that I can use and go to really quickly to put together a drum loop, you know, really quickly. And this is really useful for putting together a beat, you know. So basically I get this going on the way I like it. And like if I even want to get creative, I could, you know, use, instead of a snare, I could drop in my stabs rack into here and have a stab, like a synth sound, as a snare or anything. But basically I have it in there instead of having to draw it in every time or anything like that, and I can just swap between tons of different ones and get the exact one I want. Also, the fact that it's within a simpler, I can use the chain, and, you know, sometimes you want a little bit more of a pop or a kick in your bass. You can duplicate this and isolate a frequency of the kick, and then, you know, on a second part of the chain, and, you know, add just a little click to it to give the snare a little, or give the kick a little more bite, or give the snare a little more crunch, or, you know, whatever you want to do. It's Simpler is a really great, you know, program to work within for that. I got a little reverb set in each one because sometimes I find that reverb is the thing I need right away the most on some of these things. So yeah, that's really important to get your drum loops right. After I've, you know, put together my drum loops, then the next thing I go for is a bass line. I always go straight for the bass line. I'm such a bass person, and I only use one synth. I have some others, don't like them. I use Zebra. I love this because you can draw the wave. There's just so many things you can do with the synthesizer. Another thing is start making your own sounds. You know, make ones that you like. Map out whatever controller you have for just synthesis, and then make, you know, good sounds that are your own, that you can reuse and change and stuff. Try not to use too many presets. Just lame. So, and a lot of the times the sounds are just too nice made of a sound. You need more of a mono sound because it needs to fit into the mix. Or you can, if you like Zebra, go to the Zebra website, and lots of users upload some great sounds that you can, you know, modify and whatnot. But I always use this. Now, I go for my bass line. I'll make a, you know, a funky little bass line using my keyboard and whatnot, and, you know, start from there. Another little trick that I like to do is I like to, since I love bass so much, I like to sit down and just make some bass lines. So sometimes I will, you know, make some bass lines, and then I'll just save the MIDI. So I'll take this and I'll just drag it over into a file over here, and I'll save the MIDI notes, because the bass line was really good, and I don't know, you know, what bass sample I want to use I'll just save those MIDI files, and some later I'll just, you know, drop them back in, and I'll go, oh yeah, you know, that was pretty, you know, pretty good bass line to work for this song. So sometimes I would say, or actually most of the time, you're not actually making a track, you're preparing to make a track, having everything you need there and saving some things, so when you do get within the moment of making a track, you don't, you know, lose that feeling. You don't have to go, oh, you know, where the fuck are my samples and stuff. You can, you know, find it right away. And you have some things already made for you. So yeah, so after that I get a bass line, and then I start using my launch pad to start, you know, getting some, you know, good, you know, stabs, or, you know, whatever sound I want. And then another thing is, since I'm trying to get away from loop samples, which I never like, and they're hard to EQ because they're just a mix of samples instead of like individually set aside, I have my drum kit, and I have tons of drum racks. So I'll just drop a drum rack in here, and then it goes down here to the trigger finger, and I'll just, you know, rock some loops. And it's nice because I can separate them into their own channels a little more nicely than just using a drum loop. I can just, you know, I can isolate each one of those, and then I can EQ that a lot better. So yeah, I just try to make some nice little rhythm loops, a little more human feel, no quantization on them. Gives a little bit more of a human element to the track. So yeah, I add that in shortly after I do the bass line, so I can get more of the feel the percussion in the track. And then from there, it's whatever the music calls for. You know, I use my synth a little more. I'll lay down a few more synth lines. I'll, you know, go back into my launch pad, lay down a few more stabs, whatever, and then I'll just build my way up through the track. And then finally, you know, I get to vocals. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go through and we'll look at one of the tracks I've been working on after I've cleaned some things up, and I'll explain to you a little more once the track comes together. So.